Hello mate, my name's Gareth and welcome to Eno Wrestling. This is the first episode of my weekly series, AEWeekly, where we analyse 5 of the biggest talking points from the last 7 days in the world of All Elite Wrestling. Today, we're looking at 5 of the biggest takeaways from Full Gear that need to be considered as we move forward. In my last video looking ahead to Full Gear, I spoke of how Jungle Boy would steal the show in order to grate on Christian Cage, and I was kind of along the right lines. The match was largely a spot fest, as predicted. The storytelling in this match was minimal in the way that only the Young Bucks seemed to do well. But there was a thread of story between Jungle Boy and Christian. Near the start of the match, Jungle Boy hesitates to use a chair against Adam Cole, and it costs him. However, by the end of the match, as Christian is setting up for a concerto, Jungle Boy stops him and mouths, "I'm ready." Christian hands over the chair and Jungle Boy looks to the heavens before delivering the concerto himself, as Christian sits in the background, laughing. This level of violence is new to Jungle Boy, so new in fact that it feels wrong, especially seeing it before hearing Jungle Boy's light-hearted music afterwards. It's a very odd juxtaposition. Christian has seen a need to guide Jungle Boy, almost like a father figure, in order for him to go from being Jungle Boy to Jungle Man. However, is this really something Jungle Boy needs in order to succeed? After all, it was Jungle Boy who defeated Christian Cage to win the Casino Battle Royal at Double or Nothing. This leaves me with 3 questions. Question 1, is this new level of violence evolution or devolution for Jungle Boy as a character? Question 2, are Christian's intentions with Jungle Boy good or bad? And question 3, how will this affect Jungle Boy in the long term? These aren't questions that can be answered right now, but they're important to remember as we move forward. MJF is weirdly underrated in the ring. I personally think his character work is, for the most part, a little overrated. He's simple and it works, but for me that isn't really how I invest in his matches. The point of character work is to make you care about a match, but personally, I feel fairly indifferent to MJF as a character most of the time, and as a result, I always forget just how amazing he is in the ring. He is truly elite and he proves it every time he steps in there. The bumps he delivered to Darby Allin in their match were brutal, and it really made MJF look like a killer, but the way he consistently found new ways for his offense to self-inflict pain on his left knee was also brilliant. What this allowed MJF to do was deliver devastating moves to Darby, whilst giving him time to recover and keep reminding fans how possible it was for either man to win this match, even though he was beating the absolute crap out of Darby. MJF's selling of his knee throughout the match was fantastic, but it wasn't just the way he sold that knee, but also why he sold it. He's keeping that thread of hope alive within the fans, as well as giving his character a reason to feel that he needs to cheat later down the line. Some heels in wrestling will cheat bell to bell, it's just pure cheap heat, but MJF doesn't do this. He's very capable of putting on a great match, which allows him to preserve those moments where he cheats, and not dilute the effectiveness of his cheating. This means that those moments resonate as strongly as possible with the fans when they happen, and that is why he gets the biggest reactions from the audience. For me, as someone who doesn't invest very much in disliking MJF as a character, the fact that he still manages to draw that desired reaction out of me when he wrestles just shows how great he is in the ring. As objectively great as MJF is on the mic, I invest in the stories he's telling so much more from his physical performances in a match, or in a segment like whipping Cody, than I do from his verbal performances. It's not just what MJF does, it's how and why he does it which makes him so exceptional. The purpose he gives even the smallest of details within a match is why he's on a level with the likes of Jay White, and why most other wrestling heels simply do not compare. The match at Full Gear was a great opening to what will be a generational rivalry. MJF won the match, but Darby Allin won the psychological battle because it was MJF who broke the agreement to have a traditional wrestling match. So, they both take something away from it, and that will inform their next match down the line. In my last video, I highlighted the possibility that Cody Rhodes would do something in the tag match at Full Gear that hinted at his character progression, because without it, this match being on pay-per-view would have been largely pointless. It should have been the bare minimum, to be quite honest, but this match couldn't even deliver that. It was barely good enough for TV, let alone pay-per-view. Look at the Dante Martin stuff, for example. Every time he's on TV, he's not just there to deliver a banger, something happens that furthers his personal story. Everything on TV should further the narrative in some way, but everything on pay-per-view should feel actively important. Otherwise, it takes away from the show overall. The reality is that this match was not even worthy of being on Dynamite like many have claimed. The partnerships are totally nonsensical, the stakes of winning the match are non-existent, and nothing happened within the match to change any of that or change the course of the story at all. The defense of this match would be that it was there to get certain big names on the show and deliver some technically well-worked wrestling, but for a company with Elite in its name, that is simply not good enough. The best you can say for this match is that it was a badly executed version of one of the WWE's worst tropes, the question of, can these two coexist? The only question I have after this match is, where does this leave Cody? And that's a genuine question, because there's no story to analyse here, so what else is there to say? He's just doing stuff with very little meaning. Is this the chaotic genius I spoke about in my last video, or is it just bad WWE cosplay in AEW? CM Punk vs Eddie Kingston was phenomenal, and it's really not complex to understand why. Where some stories will rely on meticulous detailing or deeply emotive themes, this story was just pro wrestling at its simple best. Now, that's not to say there weren't excellent subtleties to this story, but to enjoy this to its maximum, you really can take it on the surface level if you want to, such as the brilliance of these two performers. The brilliance of this match is proven in the crowd reactions. CM Punk is a wrestler so iconic that his name was chanted at shows completely unrelated to him for 7 years whilst he was gone. He is less than 4 months into his return, and in this match he was doing tributes to Eddie Guerrero, yet he was booed and Eddie Kingston was clearly the crowd favourite. That kind of audience connection doesn't just appear, and Eddie Kingston simply must be world champion one day, and we have to make that clear because this company will listen. The myth that Eddie isn't good enough in the ring to be world champion is also something that this match, along with the Bryan Danielson match, totally disproved. For me, Eddie Kingston has had 2 5-star matches in under a month. Given the right opponents, Eddie Kingston is one of the best wrestlers in the world, and given just standard opponents, he still makes audiences care more than almost any other wrestler on earth. The goal of wrestling should be to elicit a reaction and make audiences feel something. How many other wrestlers can you name that do that better than Eddie Kingston? Hangman Adam Page is the AEW World Champion. It still feels weird to say. This video is actually a day later than I wanted it to be because yesterday my mind was just off. That's how moved I've been by this story and that Full Gear main event between Hangman and Kenny Omega. It's my personal match of the year because of that. This match is about Hangman reaching the peak of the mountain, and it did that perfectly. The whole match was fantastic. You could feel the animosity between the two. Kenny's desperation was completely exposed, whereas Hangman, more confident than he's ever been, did what he'd always failed to do. The ending was the best part of it for me though. Matt Jackson's nod to Hangman before Page hit the buckshot lariat on Omega. Hangman's first action after winning was to check on Kenny whilst Aubrey Edwards waits to hand him the championship. 2 beautiful touches that show that the love between these guys is still there, and it leaves the door open for an emotional reunion down the line. When the Dark Order came down to celebrate with Hangman, Alex Reynolds offered him a beer. But Hangman turns away the beer in favour of a hug, just a beautiful way to end this part of Hangman's story. If this were a film, this is where it would end. However, in wrestling things carry on, so here is where we begin a new chapter in Hangman's character arc. I was gripped for the entire match, even when I watched it back in the morning. It's personally one of my favourite matches ever, and something I think will be better appreciated in time. So those are my 5 biggest takeaways from AEW Full Gear. What were yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Remember to drop a like if you enjoyed the video. I've got loads more AEW videos coming soon, so subscribe to keep up to date with all that. You can also follow me on Twitter, links in the description and all that jazz. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later, mate.